Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Circle of the World podcast, where we discuss.
Whoa.
What are you doing?
What the fuck are you doing? This is my part.
It's my bit.
Yeah. What he said.
George, you've been drinking since 5 a.m.
I may have been, but you know.
But no, let's tone it down.
Okay, you take it away then. You take it away, Mr. Jeffrey.
Well,
It's Lord Chamberlain Jeffrey to you, scum.
Anyway, welcome to the Circle of the World podcast. As George already introduced us, whatever. I am one of your hosts, Lord Chamberlain Jeffrey, and here are my backstabbing co-hosts.
Archlector George.
And Harrison, the Adeptus Historical.
We continue our coverage of Last Argument of Kings, the third book in the original trilogy. And for this episode, we'll be covering the spoilers for part 1.
Ooh.
So you want to get started? Or George, do you want to jump in here again? Do you want to get in here? Huh?
Oh, I think
All right. Just making sure. Just checking.
You can take the lead, Jeffrey.
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah, we'll just start off by, as usual, thanking the audience for their support. And just reminding you all to follow us on our YouTubes and our social medias, on our Twitters and our Instagrams. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
All right. So we'll start off with, I guess, we're just going to cover spoilers. Again, like I said earlier to the boys, I forget how we structure these episodes, but fuck it. So
We go character by character, right?
All right. Let's start off with a character. Let's go.
Okay, Logan.
Oh, where to start with this fucker?
I feel like we're always missing something when we're talking about him in the chapters, and that's the whole thing of where, like, the conversation that is coming up quickly of him and Bethod, where Bethod's like, "Oh yeah, you this is all your fault," and then Logan does not do the thing the hero normally does, where he's like, "Oh no, you liar!" He goes, "He knew it was all true." So that moment in this book, I think, is what changes the dynamic of Logan, and we all know it's there.
Harrison, that hasn't happened yet, though.
I know, but we're talking spoilers, bro.
It's spoiler for part 1.
Spoilers for part 1.
What? Okay, well, how would you discuss? We've always discussed Logan with spoilers. What do you mean?
I just want Harrison to get tripped up.
This
Well,
is
you
good.
tripped
This
me
is
up.
good. No, you're
Congratulations.
doing good. You're doing good. But I reckon what we should talk about with Logan is we finally get to see what Logan actually is. This entire time throughout the blade itself, throughout before they are hanged, is just Logan trying to justify and trying to make himself out to be a good man to the reader. Every single thing that he thinks to himself, all of his inner monologue is about him trying to be a better man. And then all of his actions point to the other way. And now that he's back with his own crew back in the old days, he just reverts back to his old self. And what does he do? He fucking murders Tolduri.
Yeah, and I would say that it's not just him trying to justify his past or whatever to the reader, but also to himself. And we see the old switcheroo, I guess, in this, because in the first 2 books, we hear him always talk in shame of his past. We hear everyone talk about Logan Nine Fingers, the Bloody Nine, as the most evil, bloodthirsty man on the planet. But we don't see that really until he goes,
No, not at all.
Even when he goes full Bloody Nine, we think, wow, what a kick-ass superpower he just tapped into or something. We got a little, test. We got a little like, what's going on here? When we thought he was about to attack Pharaoh.
Exactly. It's like the perfect berserker trope from every single Viking or fucking medieval fantasy that you've ever read. It's just that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But we never see the dark side of it, and now we do.
Yeah. We only heard little tidbits here and there. And then we finally, like you said, we see it when he shivs Toll in the neck.
I find the whole thing with Logan's character through this section of the book far more interesting, because we know like what he's dealing with when we reread it.
Mhm.
And the way he operates, like with battling himself, where he goes back and forth, back and forth. That's why I pointed out so heavily in the previous episode, how he basically and you'll see the change here soon. You'll see the change in the very next episode. In the very next episode, we'll talk about Logan, and he's going to be a little bit different. And that's because instead of rejecting the Bloody Nine, he's been kind of on the fence, and now he's embraced it. He's like, oh yeah, you know what? I will be the Bloody Nine. I have to be. I still have a choice. I'm just a leaf on the water. It's just, I just find this conflict that he has a whole character conflict going on through the entire first half of the book. And he's still battling it, of course, but he definitely gives in at the end of part 1.
But I definitely think that's such an interesting conflict. Like you say, Harrison, so many people have this thing where it's sort of like the sunk cost fallacy, right? Where you get so far into something that you think, well, I can't give up on it now because if I do, then I'll look weak.
Which is really just an excuse for him to say, I don't know who I am without this in the North.
Exactly. But how many people do you know that think that way? Yeah. How many people that that, make decisions like that? Like, well, I've got so far into this policy or this decision-making thing that I've done that if I go back now, people are going to think I'm weak and they're going to undermine me.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's true. It's very difficult to walk back a path that you've already chosen, the deeper you go down that path.
Exactly. And it's a very big person that can do that can walk back and go, right, I was wrong. I mean, if Logan just walked up to that campfire at the beginning of the last Argument of Kings and said to everybody, right, I know I was a bastard in the past, but I'm trying to be a different person now, and just came clean and be honest with everybody, they probably would have respected him, right?
They would have at least thought, wow, this is definitely unlike the Bloody Nine. Maybe he is trying to change.
Yeah, exactly.
And he just goes, I'm going to fucking kill your ass.
Yeah, exactly. And, if it had done that, he might have had maybe a couple of duels or something that he'd had to fight, and then he would have had to fight in this new mindset.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
because he doesn't know how to change.
Yeah. Like most people.
And we'll see in the second part here that he's trying a different tactic of changing because for some reason, he's having a hard time overcoming it on his own. So he starts kind of I think Jeff's got a good point in the second part here. We'll see him not really making excuses. It's more him trying to figure out how to be better. And then again, he almost seems to give up, but yeah, we'll get there.
I think excuses is not the right word.
Yeah.
It's everybody feels trapped by their situation and by their circumstances.
Right.
Everybody is defined by their situations and their circumstances. So it's not an excuse, it's an explanation of how they feel at the time. Which is the way that everybody operates.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
It's so easy to look at a literary character and go, well, this person did this thing because of X and Y, but nobody really knows how a person is feeling.
Yeah, right. Yeah, from an outside perspective, it's difficult.
And again, a testament to Joe's writing that we're talking about this kind of fucking in-depth character.
Mm-hmm.
About the stereotypical berserker.
Very true.
Speaking of a character who is very complex, but also gets kind of shafted in this first part, and is very much, as I like to think of her, as a Logan's parallel. Pharaoh doesn't have jack shit to do in part 1.
Oh, no. Yeah, dude, she is on the fucking sidelines. Good lord.
She's very much an observer, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, she gets 3 chapters? And they're all short.
Her best one is just her laughing.
Giselle gets crowned.
Yeah. Or being announced as king.
Yeah. When Baez goes, what about a natural born son of King Guslav? He's here. and he points to Giselle. Everyone's stunned. And then we just hear, which I think was great.
Wonderful. Although,
absolutely wonderful.
Pharaoh is, she does deal with the same kind of. It's really interesting to me because she deals with the same stuff that Logan is dealing with in her own way, which is her old self being like, "No, we have to be this person."
But she's completely removed from her environment.
Yes, she's the opposite. She's completely removed from her environment, but despite that, she's still having a hard time dealing with it.
Mhm.
And but each time that she actually comes to a point where she's like, "Oh no, I should kill this guy, or I should do this thing or that thing that is vengeance," she actually doesn't, which is so interesting to me compared to kind of how Logan acts. So is it because, and the question is posed shortly soon, that, or actually Logan even posted it in part 1, that is it just the environment? How much does the environment play? And how much of this environment is playing on Pharaoh rather than her just being right next to the Gurkish? And
Which
I just
exactly
find that
moves us on to our next character, which is the one person that she relates to in part 1, which is Glockter, when she drowns him in the bath.
Oh yeah. She only relates them to the fact that they both suffered at the hands of the Gurkish.
Yeah.
Yep. She's like, "Oh, you've been tortured too. Oh, look at that. We friends now."
is that her accent?
No, I don't know where that went. That was like a mixture between an Asian and a French person. So I don't know.
We are friends now.
I don't know where I was going with that one.
I mean, that pretty much describes that accent, so that's fine.
Yeah, fair enough. That was a terrible accent. Anyway, yeah, Pharaoh. But that's the problem is she has. First, I don't even think she has 3 full chapters. I think she has like 1, and then 2. Like, you know how Joe switches perspectives in 1 chapter.
Mhm.
I think she has like 2 of those. Like, I can't even remember how many chapters she actually has in the first part.
No, she has a couple, but
she does have a couple. Okay.
Yeah, because she's that one when she's in the docks.
Yeah, in the docks, and I think that is the main thing, isn't it? Right, when she throws that brick at the guy that tries to catcall her, that's pretty much her character development for the first half of the book, which is fine because she is out of her depth, and I feel the fact that she doesn't have any good character development is a statement in itself. Because she is so out of her depth that she doesn't know what she's doing, that she doesn't have anything to say.
Well, I also think Joe has talked about it, that he felt he could have done more with Pharaoh's character.
Yes.
Yeah, but thank you, Captain Hindsight, and all that.
Rude.
I do think Pharaoh.
I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about Captain Hindsight.
Pharaoh is Joe does this with a couple different characters throughout the series, where they get to a certain act or certain book, and it almost feels like they're stagnant. And I think it's important to us to remember, yes, there's going to be weaknesses in Joe's writing, and yes, there's going to be times where their character probably should do more. But what I find interesting is even when those characters don't seem to be doing much, it's mostly because the arc that they're going through is either stopped or has paused or has ended, and so now we're that they're getting to see the ramifications of their actions and who they are play out in front of other people. And Pharaoh is seeing the ramifications of her actions as she is sparing pretty much everybody. She's not even killing anybody. She's like, "Oh, Galacta, you're fine. Oh, give me a reason to kill you, Sephiroth. Oh, birds. Okay, cool." Like she is being affected, and she does have a role to play in the story. But I think we're going to see a lot more of that depth in part 2.
Definitely, and I agree what you say with the stagnancy. The stagnancy can be a character trait in and of itself, right? So the fact that a character is doing nothing can be significant. So the fact that Pharaoh is sat there doing nothing is a character development, because she is sat there being bored and she's building up all this tension, which leads to the whole, kicking the door down thing in the last chapter of part 1. And completely ignoring the fact that Yue's there, Yue is probably her best friend at this point.
And she completely disregards him when he, comes back and talks to Bias. He's like, "Pharaoh, how are you?" She's like, "Vengeance? Am I going to get vengeance?" And he's like, "Yeah, great to see you've improved so much your time away here. Nice.
I am glad to see you have not learned patience." Oh, Yue. I fell for Yue. Let's talk about Yue. What the fuck has he been up to? He says that he has direct sight on what the prophet is doing. Do you reckon that his magic extends to the point where he can sneak into the court of Kalul and just watch them?
No, actually, I don't think so.
What is he like, translucent from the boys, just in there
Well,
naked?
he has insight. He says Kalul does not plan to do this. Kalul plans to do this and not that. How does he know that?
Well, I think he just knows
without
Kalul.
directly observing it. But we see the extent of his powers where he can remain unobserved from many people.
Well, hang on. So whenever he's with Pharaoh, he says he cannot like disguise both him and her if they go near like eaters and stuff. He can't disguise both of them when they're near eaters, meaning that he probably could do it by himself. That being said, the actual like worry he has when talking about Mamun and things like that, I don't think he can get close to certain people like the prophet and things like that because they're they have magic and shit. So I think if an individual does not have high art, I think he can sneak past them, probably no issue. But when you run into an individual who has high art, and especially if they're on the lookout for somebody, I don't think he can get close. I think that Yulwei is just very perceptive, and he watches. He's what does they always call him? They say he watches. So I think he just watches events. Yeah,
and he probably just knows like Kalul's MO is to send Mamun.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like
again,
capture dispatches and stuff.
Yeah. Yulwei, best non-POV character, right?
Excuse me.
If there's one non-POV character that I'd like to see, it's Yulwei.
Yeah, we don't get any of the Magi, do we?
Yeah, exactly. But Yulwei,
never reveal too much.
Who wants to fucking see Cole Neal's fucking perspective? Who gives a fuck about that slag?
I do. I want to know the love triangle.
We do not want to know what
maybe in Age of Madness.
We do not want to know what Baez's balls feel like, okay? No, thank you.
I can feel it.
What? You can feel it coming in there?
Senses.
I can still feel him.
Oh, God.
Oh, what, Jeffrey? Jeffrey, you can't handle it now?
I'm just saying, who wants to think of Baez's old wrinkly balls?
Well, he wasn't old back in the day, though, was he?
I have been thinking about Baez's balls. I have been thinking about Baez's fruit since the blade itself.
When he was naked?
Yes.
Of course.
I was just thinking about this the other day, guys, that I was overlooking what it means to be explicit in the podcast. So when we tick the box that says this has explicit content, we definitely tick that box, right?
Yeah, I do. You don't?
I do.
What do you mean you do? You don't edit the episodes. What are you talking about?
On YouTube, it asks you if it's explicit and it's for children. I always say no, unless it's like a purely like,
Well, I actually looked up the rules, and one swear word is enough to be explicit. So, yeah, we
fuck.
box.
Yeah, we
fuck you.
Before we get to that, let's get to our next segment, which is Best Meme of the Week. George, want to take it away?
And we have Parallel Ball for the first time in about 6 weeks. And it is really simple. It's, you read the First Law series. Did we just become best friends? Which is pretty much how we met, right?
Yep, basically.
It's exactly what happened.
So anybody who's listening to this right now, message us and you can come and join the Discord and you can come and be our best friends as well.
Actually, you all already are. We're basically like Jesus, where everyone is just our best friend automatically,
We are your savior.
Except for the we're and a blind love.
Just without the God complex.
Yeah, about we're in Bly. Anyway.
So thank you so much, Hammerball, and we'll get back to you soon.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
All right, so let's get back to discussing, characters and other tidbits from the first part. So, Harrison, I know you wanted to talk about Artie and Glock together, right?
Yes, I you guys saw how high I rated that chapter, The Perfect Couple.
Mm-hmm.
I fucking love that chapter, especially in like hindsight. It's incredibly well written, and it's so impressive that Joe like laid certain seeds early on, and
Talk about some of those seeds.
It's one of the most like subtle little things that come up. I feel like because of the way they are, they're highly, highly, highly compatible. Maybe not in a healthy way, but very compatible. And it's slowly revealed, from the end of the blade itself to see how they interact. Artie is extremely intelligent, but doesn't get to use it and to usually just waste away like her intelligence. Because why? What else would she use it for? And then Glocter's like always using it, but because he's always using it, he always he takes certain things for granted and he forgets that he is like a human being. And Artie reminds him that he's a human being, not just because the way she looks at him or the way how nice she is to him, but also because she physically verbally reminds him, "Oh, you didn't think of that, you idiot." And he's like, "Oh, I guess I'm not some evil, insane mastermind cripple. Maybe
yet.
Maybe I can be something more.
Maybe I can feel again."
And ironically, the same way that Glocter makes Artie makes Glocter feel like he can be more than he is, Glocter makes Artie feel the same way. It's just harder to tell because we don't have her POV.
What evidence do you think you have to suggest that?
Well,
I can actually answer for him. So Artie actually answers and interacts with Glocter in a more intimate and more personal way than any other character in the series that we've witnessed anyway.
You think she acts more intimate with him than she did with Giselle?
100%.
Ooh, tell me more. I
mean, in a meaningful way.
I agree.
She exposes more of her inner personality to Glocter than she does to Giselle. She especially when it comes to one of the most telling things is when he gets beaten up by Pharaoh and he says, "Oh, I got beaten up by this woman." And he's like, "Oh yeah, I threw myself down the stairs." And she's like, "Oh yeah, those stairs." And that even in that subtext, he knows what's going on. She knows what he knows what's going on. Whereas if she said something like that to Giselle would just be like, "Ha ha ha, yeah,
stairs,
stairs, ha, those bastards." Ha. You know what I mean? She knows that he knows that they're on the same level.
Yeah. Whenever they're having a conversation with one another, there's a ton of subtext all the time because they understand each other better than anybody else does, and but they also are both afraid of admitting that they understand each other. Artie is more vulnerable. They're both more vulnerable with each other than they are with anyone else. And that's kind of to your point, George, is that people. Whenever you know somebody's vulnerabilities, you are in essence opening yourselves up to them more and more. So that's exactly what you said. It's interesting because Artie basically is like, "Oh yeah, my life fucking sucks," and she is really complaining, and she does that with Giselle, but she only does it once whenever she feels like he loves her, which he does in his own way. But
then Giselle just kind of brushes it off, and then Artie immediately closes back up again.
And what does Glocter do? He says things like, "You're more than that. You're smarter than that. You can do more things with your time." And even though she may be annoyed by that, she thinks she naturally assumes that Glocter is berating her. That's not what he's doing at all. And she slowly comes to realize that's not what he's doing. And it's so complex, and I love it. I love their relationship so much.
George, you want to say anything else to that?
No, I think Harrison encapsulated that perfectly. I mean, at this point in the book, that's exactly where we've got to.
Yep.
So,
and what do you think about Glocter's apart from his dynamic with Artie? What do you think about his plot points, in terms of
his interaction with Valiant and Bulk and Archlector Salt? So, I always thought that his relationship with Archlector Salt is analogous to sort of this really abusive relationship with an employer or a superior, so to speak. And it's a really good way to talk about it because everybody's had this, right? Everybody's had this relationship where they kind of just supplicate and just, "Oh yeah, no, whatever you say goes." And towards the end of this half of the first part of the last argument of Kings, he starts to go, well, maybe the Archlector is wrong, and maybe I'm not really being used to my full advantage, and maybe I can do things for my own benefit.
Well, yeah. Although I will say, I do kind of think that we kind of saw hints of that in the Blade itself. Like, we have to remember, before the Blade itself, the Archlector and Glocta had only met once when Glocta joined the Inquisition. Glocta even mentioned it, and that ever since Archlector Sol directed him to investigate the Mercers, Salem Ruse and all that, and go deeper. That's when Archlector Sol started having a more taking a heavy-handed approach.
More of an interest in him.
Yeah, more of an interest, for sure.
But then that's on the back of him being tortured and him coming back from the way that he used to be. So this is a really big drop from, his massively massively egotistic self to this massively, almost oppositely egotistic self. His ego has died, and now all he has is id. All he has is his self. Mm-hmm. And all he has is the way that he looks out on things, and he is able to analyze these things. Mm-hmm. So when he's trying to work his way up in the kind of hierarchy of the Inquisition, all he should do is shelter himself from these feelings of, this guy is berating me, so I'm just going to take it. But now he sees an opportunity to kind of work up a little bit maybe. Yeah. And then when he meets the point where he meets Valiant and Bulk, and now he has two masters, and he's just like, oh, fuck.
He's like, that's a bit too many. That's too many masters to have.
And conflicting interest is a massively interesting point, because how many times have you had a point in your life where you've kept two promises that conflict? I mean, everybody is, but yeah, not promises, but
depends what you mean by promises.
Not necessarily. Yeah, well, that's one thing. The romantic thing isn't it? It's a very interesting bypoint of that. But obviously, Glocta isn't at that point yet, because he's a disgusting cripple.
Yeah, fucking cripple.
Rude.
His own words, right?
Right.
But what I mean is, everybody has that point where they have two people in their lives that they care very much about, or they care to the point where they can advance them, and you have to make that choice. Mm-hmm. And again, the masterful writing of Joe Abercrombie, where you have to make that choice, and he makes you feel that. And that is what is encapsulated in Glocta's story.
Okay.
Jeffrey, you have anything to add to that?
Well, I was just going to ask you if you had anything to add to that.
Well, Jeffrey, it's your turn now, sir.
Excuse me. Well, I do like how one thing about Glocta's, so his career trajectory here so far is that this man kind of just has fallen into each promotion. If you think about it, like he's not expecting to be
he's failing upwards.
He's not failing upwards. He's like, what was it? In the first book, he was Inquisitor Exempt or something like that. He was
he went from Inquisitor to Inquisitor Exempt to Superior.
Right. So he was just like, oh, I guess I'm a Super Inquisitor now. Oh, I guess I'm going to be the superior of this fucking near island city. Okay, great. All right, I'm back. I guess I don't have a job anymore. Oh no, I'm what the fuck? A boy, he just keeps I don't think he's failing upwards, but he's falling upwards. Because he's always falling up steps. But anyway, and
it really makes me think how incompetent must all of the other superiors of the Inquisition must be.
Yo, for real, I want to know who's the superior of Keln, Stariska, whatever, Angland. Give me another one. Wait,
Volbeck.
Volbeck. But wasn't Goyle from Angland or Stariska or something like that?
Goyle was basically like the head of the penal colonies.
Okay.
So he was like the head jailer, basically.
Now, I will say that we did actually hear in the very beginning of the Blade itself why Glocta is considered special to the Archlector, and that's the fact that Glocta does not give a fuck. he likes him for that reason, and obviously in the beginning, the Archlector thought he could control him easily, and to a certain degree, that is absolutely true.
Yeah,
I mean, you can see that exactly paralleled with Goyle. Like Goyle is so supplicant to the Archlector. I am. Oh my god, I'm so sorry.
and less than wretched.
I will say,
whereas whenever the Archlector criticizes Glocta is just like, yeah, what of it?
which just kind of led me to think about the Archlector and how, like, yeah, he's going a little crazy. He was trying to figure out who's going to be king and all that, and he's kind of losing his mind. He seems to be doing some weird shit. But
he's doing the whole Charlie Day thing and this Always Sunny, like Pepe 42 votes.
He's definitely one of the most intelligent characters in the series, and even though he's kind of losing his nerve, what we find him to do, without spoiling anything in the spoiler episode, is the fact that he's still in the game, and it's so very. I honestly think it's genius the fact that even though he doesn't trust Glocta really at this point, he still keeps him around and lets him have almost full autonomy because he wants to let him do his thing so he can play around it. He knows that Glocta is too useful to get rid of, but he also is now untrustworthy enough for him to just actually for him to trust him. So I just find it so interesting to see how the Archlector's trust in Glocta goes with his sanity too, because as he's losing distrust in Glocta, he's becoming more paranoid and relying on Goyle, who is less reliable. He's effective, but in a brutal, very subservient, I do whatever you want master kind of way, whereas Glocta is the actual better Inquisitor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Goyle, it's literally said, Glocta says about Goyle when the Archlector first introduces him, it's like, he's not an Inquisitor, he's a butcher.
Right.
Or a jailer, or a torturer, or something like that.
Right. He doesn't care about investigating or finding the truth or anything like that.
But then, in the case of, in a political way, it's not really important to find the truth. It's just to show that you found the truth.
True. Okay.
So, that might be an effective tool. It's like a sledgehammer versus a scalpel.
Do you guys feel that, and Jeff, if this is a good time for a break, we can, like another segment, whatever. Okay. I don't know if it is, but
no, keep going.
Back to spot.
No, yeah. Continue, Harrison. What were you going to say?
Okay. How do you guys feel about the Dogman at this point? Do you feel like he's underutilized? Honestly, we get one more kind of big thing with Dogman, which we'll see. But for the most part, he has so much more like autonomy and so much more like control and so much more character. I feel like in this first book, in the first part of Last Argument of Kings, than he did in the last two books. Honestly.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Definitely, I feel like the Dogman is probably, from like an everyday perspective, he's probably the main character of the first trilogy. Because
Dogman?
he is, Dogman, definitely. Because he's just there. He's there and he's along for the ride and he does what he can. And he does what he can as best as he can.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's interesting, George. I think that most people would say it's West, but I think you're actually more right. Because West has a lot of issues, whereas Dogman is, did he make some questionable decisions in his youth? No doubt did he kill people and things like that. But overall, he doesn't have any like crippling like mental problems. Otherwise, he is, you're right, he is kind of like the everyman. Like, he just does what he thinks is best, and usually that's the right thing to do, at least morally.
But I think it really comes down to the fact, right, this might sound really critical, but the more intelligent a character is in this series, the more in the monologue we have, right? So Glocta is extremely intelligent. So we have, maybe a full 30% of his chapters are in a monologue.
Okay.
How much of the Dogman's chapters are in a monologue? None.
Well, and this very recently we do where he's fucking beating himself up about all the men that died because it's all his fault.
Even then, maybe like 10%.
I think 10% is a low number.
I think I know what you're saying, George, and I think you're actually right. As we see even later on in the series, he does this with a lot of characters. But
and I'm not going to say that the Dogman isn't intelligent. I don't think he's not, but I think that he has had such a hard life that he is focused on the now, and he is focused on being a good man now, today, and not thinking about the past and what he's done in the past like Glocter is. He's not focusing on the past like the way Logan is, and he's not trying to think about the future. He's just, I'm thinking about what I can do today to be a good person.
Well, I think that I don't think you're necessarily wrong, George. I just think perhaps the better way to put it is that the less intelligent characters and the people like the Dogman who Joe has frequently in his story, it's not that they don't have as much inner dialogue. It's more like, yes, they're living in the moment, like what you said, but also their thoughts are not as complex. It's more simple. Like, oh man, I feel like shit because I let them all die. Whereas Glock would be like, I feel like shit because I let them all die, but actually, should I actually feel like shit because feeling like shit is actually going to hurt me in the long run. So if I feel like shit, does that mean that I'm going to?
That's all because I did this in the past and bloody, there's loads of,
Whereas Dogman is actually probably living just more in the moment, and it's kind of a subtext to intelligent people.
And it's probably more of a subtext from Joe that living in the moment is probably the way to be. Right?
Maybe. Interesting.
I mean, that's a Confucian thing, right? Confucius says
it's a possibility. None of us spoke to Joe.
Is it Confucius or Lao Tzu who says living in the past is and living in the future is a folly, and living in the present is the only way to be?
I think that's
it's a pretty common philosophical.
Lao.
It is Lao Tzu, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
What are your thoughts on that, Jeffrey? I know we kind of went back and forth a lot there. I didn't mean to.
No, you're good.
Drown your voice out.
No, you're fine. I just wonder, like Dogman. I don't know. I think with Dogman, I won't say. I don't think it's a matter of like not necessarily to say like lack of intelligence or lack of internal monologue. I will say that Dogman, for most of his life, especially his adulthood, and obviously for the majority of the Blade, for all of Blade itself, and the majority of before they're hanged, he's used to being on the sideline. He was always a secondary character in the books, maybe, but also in the actual like story in his life. Like he's not even the star of his own movie. For him it was always Logan. Does that make sense?
I think that's a great point, Jeff.
Yeah. So he's always. I know we criticize Logan a lot about him being a leaf on the water and all that. Dogman's a leaf on the water. Had all this time to just turn away from Logan, especially when Logan was, made a monster. Well, that kind of Logan. He could have just walked the fuck away, but he just stayed with him, because that was his boy. That was his homie. Yeah.
Especially in the context of the North, where if you walk away, there's just loads of guys that might slit your throat.
Yeah, or you could just join another chief, dozen, whatever, what the fuck. I think he's much more of a put your head down and just go about your business kind of guy.
Yeah. And I think
in the real world, those are the kind of people that enable the worst fucking war crimes ever.
Yes, in a way, yes. And then, but also in a lot of instances, like we see with the Dogman, somehow the cards fall the right way, and he's in a leadership position now.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And we see how it works out in the end, and
we will
work out.
Yeah,
for the better. I would say that the best part about the Dogman is the fact that the Dogman, even though we kind of realize, as we do with a lot of the characters, like how flawed they actually are, with the Dogman, we see these flaws, and the Dogman goes, yes, I made the mistake. I fucked up. I'm done with that, though. This is what I'm going to do now, because this is the right thing.
Yeah,
and I like that.
Yeah, it's like that maxim, whereas like the person best suited to power isn't the one that lusts after it, it's the one that doesn't want it.
Exactly.
And that's Dogman to a T. That man did not want to be chief, and Dow and Toll and Grim were like, too bad, bitch, you gonna be chief. You know, that whole thing. So,
and speaking of which, and a perfect segue is Giselle.
Yes. So we normally have character spots, but since we're doing spoilers in this episode, we're gonna, we basically are doing character spots. We're gonna give our official character spot to His August Majesty.
You're my man.
You're my man. Captain Luther. You're my man.
You're the Union's.
You're my king.
Wow, what a great bit of foreshadowing from Joe there.
And to think it all came from Ladislaw royalty. Look at that.
He's literally himself. He is his man.
I am the man.
Oh, that was a good one. I love it. Good job. So let's start off with Giselle. Here we have a man who struggled his entire life, had to deal with all these prejudices to get to where he is, right? Isn't that Giselle's arc?
Everybody hates me for being rich. Everybody hates me for being handsome.
Yeah, right. Oh, right. The struggle of being rich, handsome, incredibly lucky, and having all the privilege. All the privilege.
Your life possibly set out from you from birth.
Seriously, the one hateable character. How can you start with a less hateable character than that?
No, but he's the one that you love to hate. Like, you meet Giselle, you're like, this motherfucker's a dick, and I love him.
Exactly. I hate the first time I read the first Lord trilogy. I was like, what the fuck? What the fuck is this guy? This is like the opposite of the character that I want to read about. And in the best possible way.
But ironically, Giselle, the more ironic, the more and more I read the series, the more and more I fall in love with Giselle. I fucking love the man. He's fucking fantastic. Not only just because he's fucking hilarious from entertaining because of his like naivety and his arrogance, but like from his like purely selfish heart to turning into like his purely selfless heart, and it's incredible. Like, I don't know why Giselle of all the characters ends up being the guy who is like, wow, that like it like his presence is so like unsung both in the community and in the books. Well, but like in all the subtle ways, in all the ways that count, like he's there.
Yeah,
but I think that's the thing, isn't it? Right, leadership is that, isn't it? It's unspeakable. There's no single thing that defines being a good leader.
I don't think he's a good leader. I just think he's a lot more influence.
Harrison's talking about his arc.
I reckon he is.
No, but Harrison's talking about something different. He's talking about his arc, his progression.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean. Like, the best leaders come from nothing, right?
Well, yeah. Oh, I mean, we could talk about his leadership.
No, actually.
We could talk about his leadership in a second. But I will say, it isn't out of left field, like him being so selfless, which we do kind of see, and which we will see.
No, but it's so overshadowed and so foreshadowed, especially by Baez, that it's almost ironic.
What?
Well, Baez is literally telling him about how to be a good leader all throughout the second half of the boat itself, and all throughout.
Yeah, but again,
before they hang.
At this moment, I don't think we're talking about necessarily the leadership of Giselle. We're just talking about his personality traits. How, like what Harrison was saying.
No, of course, but of course his personality traits are affected by what he's heard.
Right. Well, I was gonna say where I don't think it was such a big. I don't think, Harrison, you were saying that it was such a leap. Like, I mean, it is a huge shift. It's like a huge paradigm shift. But I'll say you saw, like, we know where it was coming. We know where it came from, which is like the entire fucking quest in Before They Are Hanged. Plus the before he left to go on the quest, his realization of like how much he was into Artie, how much he loved her. At least, he says he loved her, but we know that at the very least he felt and cared for her deeply. Now,
Yeah.
then we see him go through the ringer, literally go through the ringer, in the quest and before they're hanged, out in the fucking worst elements could be. Everyone there was upfront with just like their basic, being upfront about their distaste for him before he got hurt. Then he gets his face smashed in. Then then Pharaoh, takes care of his face. Logan tries to give him pep talks, even though he didn't deserve it. Realizes how much of a shit he's been. Tries to make up for it. Tries to be the hero in a situation, right? The whole like, oh, I got it. When he gave them their jacket and they're about to fall in the hole, and then he's like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna be the hero. And then they fall. He's like, guess no such thing as heroes. And then obviously to find out that the quest was all for shit. And so he did have a moment where he was like, I got my face smashed in for no reason. But at the end of that book, he was just happy to know that he was going back home. And the Giselle so we saw his, progression. Like he definitely was selfish, but it isn't it wasn't a huge leap. It was a series of jumps. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's one of those things that like Joe, like because of I just think it's so complex that Joe wrote a character with such a very standard template with just enough twist on it that had you guessing. And as you read through the story and you realize it wasn't kind of like your standard fantasy story, it made somebody like Giselle stand out more and more for me.
Absolutely.
I think. And I think you're right on your point, George. I know what you were saying now, though. Thinking about it and everything is the fact that the traits that Baez was trying to instill about how to be a great king, because he thought that Giselle just needed a pep talk. He needed to be shown how to be a good king, even though he doesn't really care about that. Yeah, he doesn't. Baez doesn't care about that. But Giselle becomes, or he tries at least to become like the same kind of king that Aragorn is. Like Baez is like, this thing, and this thing, and this thing, and this thing matters. And because Giselle is even trying to reach that level, and he's trying harder than almost anybody in the entire series to truly be a better person.
Yeah.
It means that like I am so insanely like unusually not directly. I don't know if there's a word for it where you feel inspired, but not to the level of like, oh my God, I'm inspired. Just like he's kind of an inspirational character by the fact that despite everyone else around him saying, I'll just be who I am, he says, no, we have to try. We have to try. And it's such a basic arc that he plays so well that he doesn't really do again.
And it's so sad that his basic arc of trying to be a better person is crushed in the closed council when he says, well, maybe everybody should be taxed the same way, and everybody just looks at him like,
he's an idiot.
You're an idiot.
Stupid.
Wow, what a real way to fucking crush that spirit, eh?
But you know what's crazy is despite what people say, and this may be going to spoiler territory, but I feel like it's important, despite what people say about Giselle and how, man, he really did become weak in the end, and we'll get there. The fact that I don't, yes, just Giselle bend the knee, sure, but he does not give up.
No,
I mean, you can see all of his character traits. You can see all of the growth that he's had, maybe delayed, but you see all of that in Orso.
You lift that beam, Giselle. You lift that beam.
And we also get it, which we will get to by the end of this book. But like, the end of the book, when him and Glock are talking, you'll see about trying to do, other things that, wouldn't be against a certain person's direct
intentions.
Yeah, intentions. So
surely this is all just a fucking big metaphor for the individual person can struggle against the system that is resisting them.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the thing, right? Is that Giselle in both the community, to round it off, that in both the community and inside the book series is not recognized for the fact that he is absolutely trying his best in his current situation, probably better than a lot of people would. And we don't really get to see that in the popular medium of, oh well, look at him go. And even if they ever make it, if they make a TV show about the First Law or the books or a movie series, a lot of people are going to think, wow, Giselle's kind of a pussy. But they don't fucking understand that Giselle is like the rest of us. He's actually better than the rest of us.
And how you can Sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
No, go ahead, George. My point is going to be specifically something Harrison said, but I'll remember.
No, you go ahead.
You said in the community, I see a lot of love for Giselle in the community. I don't know where you're seeing the lack of love or the I don't want to say disdain, but like
no, I don't. It's not disdain. It's more
Right.
like most people would agree that Giselle was weak by the end. And I don't think he's weak. Honestly,
weak. First of all, weak in the sense of maybe being powerless, but
yes,
but Jesus Christ, I mean, anybody would be in this. Man, those motherfuckers need to shut up.
You can say
that if that's the case. If that's the case,
and you can say that about any world leader that has achieved power.
Yeah, right. I think that
world leader is fucking powerless to affect any kind of real change in that way.
Right, and I'll just say that I'm not on like the internet a lot, but I'm just saying from what I've seen, I haven't seen the community necessarily be, I don't want to say against Giselle, but think of him in that way. That's what I meant to say.
No doubt. No, I'm not trying to say that people are against Giselle. It's more like people see him like, oh, he's kind of a weak guy. He doesn't really stand up for himself. After all that, it's more tragic than anything because he couldn't really stand up for himself. Would anybody be able to?
Right. Exactly.
Anybody? There's only been, I can think of on my head, 2 characters in the entire fucking series that says "fuck you, Baez," and they both do it on the heroes, and they are both fucking hyped up, and they are both under such immense pressure.
You forget one other person.
Okay, there's somebody else I'm forgetting, but there's
this book.
No, you're absolutely right, Harrison. You're absolutely right in the fact that all of these characters get put down in that way. Like every single character that rises to power and manages to actually do something is like, well, why didn't you do this instead? Because
right.
Like I said earlier, Captain Hindsight, thank you very much. Hindsight is 2020. You can look back and go, yeah, well, you should have done this instead.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, George. Jeff.
The only thing I want to say, I'm just realizing something. We do know that by the end of the book, it's a bit like we're getting hints of like Baez being who he is, but we don't really necessarily get that specific reveal until the end. So I don't know if we should be really talking about Baez being that.
Well, I figured we could because it's a Giselle character spot, and we're I wanted to get his character kind of thought of overall.
Let's talk about it, but let's not give the whole game away. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just meant like I didn't say specifically what happened. I'm just saying a lot of people. Yeah, he gets.
I got you. I'll edit this stuff out. Continue on with George. You were saying something.
Well, no, I was going to get political, but I'm very drunk, so probably shouldn't.
Oh boy, you gonna get political?
Fair enough, Georgie. Fair enough.
Well, I actually feel like people are really hard on Giselle, especially because he doesn't live up to his power and the way that he acts.
Yeah. But
because
he's not where king to be. Go ahead, go ahead, George. Do it.
He is a man, and everybody's idea of a man is to be strong and forceful and persuasive.
Yeah, I don't
think everybody. Not that.
Yeah, it's basically people expect him to be fucking Aragorn, but then guess what? Aragorn doesn't have a certain individual hovering over his shoulder.
Exactly. No, not everybody is like that. Right. And in fact, that is a very stereotypical, if I may say, way of seeing men in general, in the same way that people see Pharaoh as a stereotypical strong woman.
Okay.
Almost like Joe is kind of trying to play with gender stereotypes like he does later in the series.
Yeah. I hear you. And I will say, we do see Giselle, be a strong man when he throws his cup at that close counselor. I forget.
No, that's not strong at all. That's
I know. I
think that's weak.
It's just him having a temper tantrum. I know.
The one time he is strong, when he actually stands up and he says,
Baez. We'll get there.
He gets fucking crushed.
Yeah. We'll get there.
But I think Giselle is strong multiple times in the series. Strong as a human is strong, and strong in the same way that a dogman shows his strength. The strong in the way that a good man trying to do his best in an impossible situation is strong. And so,
and is trapped by circumstances.
Exactly. So my point was, it's not that people. I don't think the community has any disdain for Giselle at all. I just think that a lot of the community thinks he's a weak person, and to a certain degree, yes, Giselle is probably not as strong as he can be. It's always been a character flaw that he is kind of a coward, but he is by no means. I don't think he is by no means a weak man. Yeah, I think he is somebody who's stuck.
Yes, thank you. Okay, that's a good one. I like that. There you go.
Exactly. I mean, again, the way that Joe plays with these kind of stereotypes and the way that we should view strength and what we do with strength is very versatile. And again, it's interpreted in so many different ways, and it's helped me in so many different ways. You know, there are ways that you can go through life and you can supplicate to people and you can deal with people in a way that you might not think that is strong, whether you're male or female or whatever you want to be. But you can go through life and deal with things in not the way that you want to be and just get on with it. And that is strength.
Yeah, I agree.
I think so.
That's a good one. Nice one, George. I think that was a good one to top us off there. I like that. All right. Well, now that we covered our character spot with the one and only Giselle Dan Luthor, or should we say Giselle Dan?
His August Majesty Giselle Dan Luthor.
Wait, hold on. What the fuck? What's the name of that dynasty? What's their last name? What's their surname?
Ruslav.
That's his first name.
There is no last name. That is literally never mentioned. It's just the King of the Union.
So you mean to tell me they're basically rappers?
Well,
they don't have.
Think about it this way. What's the name of the British monarchs?
Shit! I know this. Fuck,
George.
No, you don't.
Harry. Edward.
No. It is
last name.
I know. There is.
It's the name of the really big castle.
Windsor?
Yes.
Yeah, I knew it. Woo!
I watched The Crown, so I already knew that.
I watched The Crown too, but I haven't watched it in like 2 years. But I knew it. I knew it. Anyway, so we're moving on from Giselle Dan No Name, and we are going to move on to who do you guys want to talk about next?
West.
Yes. Yeah,
he has like the most.
Yes,
West has one of the most satisfying chapters in the entire series, which we've already covered. Which is, where he's like, "Hey, Croy, Polder, get your shit in line," and he fucking handles it. He handles it like a fucking boss.
I love that. That is the best development in any character, where West goes from supplicant to the man in charge in one chapter, and he just handles it like he is born for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he just goes, right, okay, even though he's shaken, even though he knows that he doesn't belong there, he never doubts himself.
Well, I think he does doubt himself, but I think what I will say for your point, George, is that he just knew what to do. Right?
Exactly.
And you know what I think actually helped, right? Is the fact that from the get-go, he was made painfully aware of Croy and Polder's at that time their personality traits, their disdain for him, their disdain but respect for Lord Marshal Burr. Now, and that helped him. I think this really prepared him because
he placed them off each other.
Right. But what I'm saying also is I think this really prepared him. This really helped him is because if Croy and Polder were presented as neutral, decent people, they might have had to jump on him. They could have maybe even though he became the Lord Marshal, they might have manipulated him, but he knew that he had to put the foot on the gas. Do you know what I mean? Like he had to take charge of the situation. Whereas if they weren't so blatantly dicks, then you never know what could have happened. Obviously,
I mean, think about it this way, right?
That's an excellent point.
If the situation was different, if Lord Marshal Burr really did die in the battle at Dunbreck, Do you think things would have worked out the same?
Well, either way, he has to. At the Battle of Dunbreck, that's before they were hanged. So Gustaf's still alive.
Yeah, it would be different.
It'd be different.
The timing is perfect.
Yeah. Well, not exactly perfect, but
No,
yeah,
it's a little bit late, but it is. Oh well, if what we talked about in the last episode with the Carls,
maybe
not
it
being
wasn't
lucky
late,
and then the high place. It's all auspicious, is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that West, he has been in the midst, he's basically middle management, right? Everybody knows middle management, right? Middle management is the least, or is the most thankless job in the world. Middle managers work 80 hours a week for 40-hour salary and get thanked by nobody and get fired out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And that is pretty much what West is right up until he gets made to Lord Marshal.
I would say, yeah, that's very accurate. I like what you said, Jeff, too. Like how you said, like if they were different kinds of people, he wouldn't have to jump on it, and maybe they would have acted differently. It could have gone to shit. I like that, and I also like how like West. You know, I know I have a tendency to look negatively on West because of a certain action, you know, beating his sister. But the truth is that West really tries, and a shout out to Lord Marshal Burr for like he saw West's potential and he really honed that. He's one of the few characters who directly like influence another character with the purpose of them taking over, like to be successful, and It's pretty impressive what Wes is able to do in the short time he's in charge, and he does what Lord Marshal Burr cannot. And yeah, shout out to them. Well done, sir.
Well done. Mm-hmm.
Well, I do love the common mentions of like, oh, you avenged Lord Prince Ladislaw.
But I really do think it's interesting as you know, he's a common person. He's a common man. He's not a nobleman. Mm-hmm. He's been elevated out of nowhere, and therefore he doesn't have any of the political sort of affiliations that anybody else would. Like if Croy was elevated, he would have his patron and all of his subordinates
obligations.
Yeah, exactly, all those obligations. Whereas the West can just go, right, no, we've got these Northmen, we've got this plan, we have to do this now.
Right,
and he can just do that. Whereas even if Croy or Polder were inclined in that way and wanted to do that exact same plan, they would probably have a patron that wanted to do, you know, Croy has Archduke Salt and Polder has Lord Justice Moravia.
No, the other way around, but yes.
Yeah, whatever. You know, each way. It doesn't matter. That's probably the point that Joe's trying to make. It doesn't matter either way.
It does. It actually does indeed. No, listen here.
Oh, here we
Polder.
go.
No, seriously. Polder is old.
I'm not talking about personality. I'm just talking about like.
I'll let you finish. I'm sorry.
One person has to go one way, or one person has to go the other. So West just has this single-mindedness. He has this one way that he has to act, and if he doesn't act in that way, the story does not act. And the story does not work out in that way.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
No, I hear you.
So
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
I'm trying to think of. My point is that West is free of all of the political inhibitions.
He is.
Somebody that has paid for their rank would be. In the same way that it works in the real world, you know, people only get to that point, you know, people only become a general in a modern military because they know somebody that's a general in the modern military.
It's very interesting, actually, that you bring that point up, because there are, for anybody anybody in power throughout all of history, almost always owes something to somebody.
Right.
Yes.
And so, on the rare occurrence that an individual either does not give a fuck or does not actually owe anybody, they make a massive change. And we see this difference now. This is a spoiler, but it's very ambiguous. But Forrest is in the same boat, and that's why he does the things he does in the exact same way. And other characters within the series, a few of them are like that. And in our real world, like people like Napoleon, he wasn't really beholden to anybody whenever he first came to power, and that meant he could do whatever the fuck he wanted.
Napoleon. I'm so glad that you brought up Napoleon. I think that Joe intended for West to be Napoleon.
Really?
What do you mean?
Well, I will say this. George, can I say
things
something?
had gone the same way and West had... Well, okay, spoilers here, guys, right? For future books. If West had survived and everything had gone the way things had gone, West would have been Napoleon.
Well,
I think so.
You think so, Harrison, or no?
No, I disagree. But
Yeah,
that's only my opinion, George.
I have to disagree too, just because we didn't get the idea of. Oh wait. West and Napoleon both came from less than.
Well, no, Napoleon
was a nobleman.
He was
Napoleon.
I thought he was born in.
No,
wait,
no.
He was.
No commoner is called Bonaparte, right?
I don't know enough about the French, so whatever. Anyway,
I am Napoleon.
What I wanted to say was,
in fact, in France, no commoner had a last name, so
I didn't know that either. But what I wanted to say was, we were talking about how West doesn't owe anybody anything, right? Like he came in. Like, you know what? For the majority of his military career, gotta agree. Even though he was friends with Glockta, like he just happened to be in the same platoon, squad, whatever you want to call it. But he does owe Giselle everything.
And Bruce.
Yeah, but you know what Giselle is? Giselle, by the end of the story, Giselle is a good man. So he would not hold.
Right. No. I understand what you're saying. I'm not saying that Giselle would call in a favor or anything, but I am going to say that it does throw a wrench into the notion that West is the one person that got to where he is just by his own abilities. If it wasn't for Giselle throwing a goblet in the face of a senior citizen, West wouldn't be there. Do you know what I mean?
That's a good point, Jeff.
You know what I mean? So still, even though West, for the most part, for most of his military career, gets to where he gets to based off just straight up skill, tenacity, and maybe trying to play the game, but he's not in the camp of somebody, right? He still, at the end, is just like everybody that is the high-ranking military officer, is that he owes his position to somebody. And in this case, he owes the position of Lord Marshal to our High King, His August Majesty, Giselle Dan the First. That's what I'm going to call him. I don't know.
Jeff, what you're saying is that everybody that is in a position of power basically has their power because of somebody that's thrown a temper tantrum.
In the Union,
which is great.
Yes.
In the Union, in the real world.
No, in the world, no.
I don't know about the real world, but in the Union, definitely. In the North, it's more of a, I don't know, like an incentive to take it or die.
that's just a temper tantrum with the ability to follow through.
Sure, yeah.
I think that it is both. Anytime somebody's able in a real world, anytime somebody's able to rise up through the ranks, and yes, everyone owes somebody something. Nobody gets to where they're at without help. Period. I mean, yeah, it's just.
You know what?
It's just.
I'll agree with that.
It's a fact that no one gets to who they get to become or where they're at in life without help. It's just anybody who doesn't have any help or brags about it either is a fucking liar or they're not doing well for themselves.
Right. It's
either
either
we need each other.
It's either, help, a favor, or a stroke of luck.
Yes.
Right.
But I will say that in real life and in the First Law, most people come to power with strings attached.
Absolutely.
Whereas Giselle put West in power with no strings attached because he was his friend. So it meant that West did not have any other political obligations, like what you were saying, Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
But also, and he's similar to Napoleon in that way. Napoleon rose up, and somebody said, "Hey, maybe you should take power," and he said, "Okay,
yeah, sure, why
and
not?
did it."
Yeah,
but Napoleon.
But at the same time, Giselle was drunk.
Yeah, he was, but
drunk but angry.
I think that's a good
he
time.
did it.
to
Why
end
did he do it
the
though?
episode.
But I was just trying to say. What I will say is what I was trying to say is, I don't know if it was clear or not. Is that I'm not saying necessarily that Wes has political obligations to like a certain party or a person, but he does owe his position to another person. That's what I meant to say.
Yes.
Like I know there's no strings attached for Wes. I understand that. That's our show, everyone. We want to thank you all for listening and supporting this podcast. As you all know, this is a passion project for the three of us, and your support really does mean a lot to us.
Join us next week as we cover The Number of the Dead, Leaves on the Water, and Authority.
And make sure you follow us on social media. We're on everything. And please message us on Reddit on our email, which is circleoftheworldpodcast@gmail.com. And we have a website. It's circleoftheworld.com.
And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or any podcast app that you use. And please make sure to rate and review this podcast, as it helps to spread our reach. Thank you all again for listening. The end is coming.